Okay, hello everyone, welcome back. I have the panel with me. Let me do quick introductions. I have with me Gary Glisson. Gary is a retired pharmacist, pharmacy owner, multiple pharmacies, pharmacy expert, really a front-end expert and consultant. And we're lucky to have him with us today to talk about optimizing the front end. Also with us today, Stephanie Zimmerman, who is the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Ananda. For those of you who are familiar, Ananda is a top provider of CBD products. And she also has got her start in independent pharmacy, working in independent pharmacy, working on their front end, optimizing that front end, marketing. And then for those of you who don't know, I also have a background in independent pharmacy. My family owned a large independent pharmacy since 1955 that they just recently sold. I grew up working in it, know a lot about the front end as well. So we're going to, I think, have a great panel discussion on optimizing your front end. So let's get started. First of all, welcome. Thank you both for being here. So I think what we've talked before this, and we all agree that there really is no one-size-fits-all approach to maximizing profitability and optimizing, your front end. But we also agree that you have to start using the tools that you have available to, the reports that you have in your pharmacy management system and in your POS system. And if you're not doing that, you're really missing out on some amazing data that can really drive that front end and the decisions you make. So let's get started with that. And let me start with you, Stephanie. Let's talk about some of the things that you should be doing with that data from your pharmacy management system, and maybe some of the questions you should be asking.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Brad, and everyone. I've have a passion for working with independent pharmacies and maximizing that front end and increasing your profits without DIR fees and the PBMs. So that's important, right? Everyone's pain point. A lot of things that we can do, of course, like to your point, Brad, is if you can understand your reports and you can understand, your profitable areas in your pharmacy, that's when we can manage it and that's when we can improve upon it. So that's important. One thing that we talk about with Ananda Professional is we're geared to help you easily increase that CBD potential and quickly become that go-to expert in your field. Because, I just happen to work with CBD, but it's also, you can do the same thing with multiple areas in your store. So running your reports and finding those profitable areas, that's extremely important. One way we do this is run your reports on maybe your top pain medications, such as, let's just say, Cymbalta, or, some of the things that you actually fill all the time. Now, if we have those particular items, then we can increase and bundle different things and items to increase your profits by, helping the patients and using CBD or using something else. Say if you're running Cymbalta reports and you find that, now you also know what doctors write those prescriptions. So we can easily get to those doctors, we can easily get to those patients by targeting those particular items. So that's one of the many ways. And then of course, we're thinking about flu season, of course, we're giving out flu vaccines. We can actually use that time, since you're in front of those patients, and slow down and talk to them a little bit further, gather more information. Then we can go back to our system, our reporting system, and actually plug in the information that you learn for future campaigns. So at Ananda Professional, we constantly have marketing tools that we can use to help the patient population further, and we absolutely use that part of it. So ask more questions, gather more information, and then we can plug that into our system.
I'm not sure what you're doing over there, Gary.
I'm sorry, I was moving to a different spot.
That's okay. We're fine. So, and Stephanie, I think that was a good point. And one of the things that I we talk about and I'm thinking about too is, that for a lot of pharmacies, I think make a mistake when they create their intake form, for instance, for a new patient, and they're just getting the bare minimums of what they need to get the patient
Exactly.
into the pharmacy. But there's an opportunity there, right? There's an
Yeah.
opportunity to ask some additional questions. And Gary, or either one of you, what would be some of the additional questions you might consider asking on an intake form or in a vaccination form?
Right. Well, I mean, when they're on, I always like to have that second page, and the customer doesn't have to know that that's not part of the flu intake form. This is just a marketing tool. And if we can add questions such as, are you having issues with pain? Are you having issues with sleep, anxiety? Now you have some multiple areas that you can discuss, like even with our CBD line. So that's one area that we typically ask, are you having issues with that? Make sure you're getting an email address. You'd be surprised at how many people don't have those email addresses.
Right.
And so once we have some of the additional information, and say that you have a marketing campaign later on or feature like a diabetic symposium or whatever that may be, now's the time. This is like Christmas for pharmacies. Instead of using, it's like, oh, I'm doing all these flu vaccines and I'm so busy. Well, use that time. This is your time to gather more information. So I think it's a really important area where, get the things that you want from these customers. Right. Those are the typical things with our CBD sales: pain, anxiety, and sleep that we can get. And then flip that back and then add that product to the patient's regimen for a better outcome.
And I think too, Brad, that pharmacists, unfortunately, and pharmacies, I probably should say, not just pharmacists, miss that opportunity. They give the vaccine, they spend that time with the patient, but there's always an opportunity to have a further discussion, maybe upsell to another product that they need, that they probably don't know that they need until somebody asks them a question. And most patients I've found coming in my pharmacy like to interact with the pharmacist or the technician or whoever's there, and they are open to answering a lot of questions.
Yeah, and that makes me think too, like that you have this opportunity to ask, are you taking a multivitamin? Are you taking a probiotic? Because those are opportunities as well. And you can run reports on the pharmacy management system to see those patients that are on an antibiotic, those patients that are taking medications that deplete nutrients. I mean, we've done a lot of topics here on nutrient depletion and drug-induced nutrient depletion, and an opportunity there. So I think, when we were talking previously, there are two really low-hanging fruit pieces here for a lot of patients. CBD products, as well as probiotics, as well as multivitamins or supplements for drug-induced nutrient depletion. And that all starts with getting data out of your pharmacy system.
Oh, no doubt. One of the things that has probably frustrated me for years is I think a lot of pharmacists don't want to ask those questions. They don't really want to sell. They're afraid they're putting something off on the patient. And in reality, they're doing them a favor. They're laying it out there. They are giving them credible information. I work a lot with Stephanie because I consult with Ananda as well as some other companies. And they don't know where to get credible information. So there's your opportunity. And they're coming to you because they do trust you. You've already earned the trust. So there's the chance to make a recommendation either on CBD, probiotics. It's interesting you mentioned probiotics because they're all over the television. And I've been practicing pharmacy for 42 years, but I remember when probiotics were taboo and nobody talked about them. Now they're mainstream on TV, but you've probably got a higher end probiotic in your pharmacy that is going to benefit the patient more than what he's going to pick up at CVS, Walgreens, or wherever else they pick them up. So start the conversation, get it going, educate the patient a little bit, and I think you'll find them to be extremely appreciative.
It's really, to me, it comes across, or, it really comes down to an attitude change, recognizing that even if you're not comfortable to ask, at least have the discussion.
Correct.
You know, you need to make the ask. That's the best thing to do, but at least having that discussion, or at least putting the information in front of them for those people that are just can't sell, just absolutely, that's just not in their DNA and they can't do it. At least get the information in front of the patient, and that again goes back to some marketing, right? I mean, it goes to collecting the information in your intake forms and your vaccination forms, and then getting that information on your pharmacy system and marketing to them. So you, Stephanie, your background is in that. And what were some of the things you did in your independent pharmacy that you worked in? What were some of the programs that you did there to help?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, Brad, a good testimony, like you were just saying, a good testimony right by your product is a perfect opportunity for people while they're waiting in the pharmacy. So if you have a good testimony, type it up, put it near your product. This is what happened to me, and this is what happened. This is what can happen to you as well. Also near the knee braces or sleep aids or anywhere in your pharmacy in your front end. Let's put some shelf talkers. Let's put some things there to actually, cross-reference different items. It's just an easy fit for us to where, if they're coming in for one item, let's remind them that there's other products out there that we can help, ease their pain or whatever that may be. So I think to me is just having those target audiences and thinking about those a little bit further. And then of course, educating your staff. If you don't educate your staff on some of these systems and how we can make these work, then sometimes I think we're spinning our tracks. So,
Sure.
I think that's important.
Yeah, the training aspect is hugely important. And before I segue to that, I want to bring back to what Gary was talking about, because pharmacists are still every single year in the top 3 most trusted professions in America. And they battle back and forth between pharmacists, nurses, and firefighters, right? And the pharmacists have been number 1 so many times. And so you're trusted. So take that opportunity to build on that already trust, because like, I think you and I were talking about this previously, Gary, for a patient that is hearing all about CBD, an elderly patient is hearing all about CBD, where are they going to go to get the most trusted information? To the local marijuana shop where they can pick up CBD, or to their pharmacist, if their pharmacist is willing to talk about it and let them know that they're willing to talk about it?
Oh, no doubt. I think we are sometimes our own worst enemies by not showcasing our talents. And we've, unfortunately, as much as I hate to admit it, I've been a pharmacist for 42 years. And back in the day, we didn't do these things because we were making plenty of margin on prescriptions. Now you really need an add-on sale, everything going out of there. And you mentioned the CBD, and what I coach my clients on is, CBD is such a gray area right now, but a lot of pharmacies have it, some don't. But we are going to get regulation in the next 18 to 24 months. And if you are the guy in your community or the gal in your community that has all the credible information, and bear in mind, people come to your pharmacy because they trust you. They don't know the difference from one CBD product to another. If you can enlighten them and they become dependent on you for that information, then you can drive that behavior in any direction that you want. And as these regulations come out and they start to confiscate product from bad distributors, then your credibility goes through the roof. And I think that is what we really have to capitalize on and jump on. And just, you can make it into a game. What can I add on to this encounter that's going to benefit the patient and benefit us at the same time?
If I can add to that, Gary, real quickly, I just want to say, I mean, once we coach a lot of our pharmacies, most of those pharmacies can actually see an increase in their sales within 3 to 5 months of $5,000 in profit. So it's just training that staff, Brad, and getting them into the right point of sale system with RMS and understanding your reports, because then we can manage it and then we can improve upon it. So
well, and so I don't want to make this all about CBD, and that some people are going to do it and some people are not going to do it. And that's certainly not our purpose today. That's one of the options though, and I think it's low hanging fruit. We also have a customer that when they started doing, they got trained on how to discuss drug-induced nutrient depletion with their patients. They saw their sales in a 6-month period go from negligible in nutritional supplements and vitamins to over $10,000 in sales at a 50% profit margin. So $5,000 a month hitting their bottom line, which is just awesome. And you're doing it because you're selling this prescription, which you might not be making anything on, or you're making very little on, and suddenly you're making an additional $20 or whatever it is, just because you had the conversation. And so I think that's really, really important. But the training your staff is also incredibly important. And I think that's another area that pharmacies let themselves down by not offering that training, not providing that training to their staff on how to just have a discussion or just to say, I'd like to bring the pharmacist over to discuss this with you.
Right.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Brad, now is the optimum opportunity. I have been so frustrated watching COVID over the last year on TV, and there have been maybe 2 blurbs from the quote unquote experts that vitamin D improves your chances with COVID. Well, we all know as pharmacists, vitamin D makes a huge difference. So you put together a small immune boosting package of your supplements, and you train your staff up on it so they can do most of your heavy lifting and make sure they know when to call the pharmacist. And in most cases, you don't have to. But you've got all of these people coming in that have no idea how to prevent COVID. And it's a simple process. They trust you. Again, you've got to, I call it flexing your pharmacy muscle. This is, if you've ever had a better time to do it, I don't know when it was, but now's the chance. COVID is driving these new potential patients into your pharmacy. A lot of them are not your regular customers. So doors wide open to solve a problem for them. And then you got a friend for life.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't miss the opportunity, right? This is a perfect opportunity to prepare and have those other questions and build that relationship right there. So now I want to segue. I want to talk about data out of point of sale as well. So we've talked a little bit about the pharmacy system and intake forms and things, but one of the things that over the years, I've been talking to independent pharmacies or all pharmacies about is, I asked the question, who's your biggest competitor to your front end business? And almost without exception, I never hear really their biggest competitor, which is the grocery store, the local grocery store. And I'm talking front end. Back when, Gary, when you started in pharmacy, back when my parents started in pharmacy, we all remember that grocery stores didn't carry OTC and HBA products. They carried groceries. And if you needed Tylenol or shampoo or toothpaste, you went to the local drugstore to get that, or you went to the drugstore to get that. Today, of course, you can get all of that at Walmart, Target, grocery store, Costco, wherever. And so people go, if you're like me, I don't have any prescription medication. So if I don't go to a drugstore because I don't have a need to go there. I go to the grocery store every week. So I'm buying my shampoo and my toothpaste and my Tylenol or whatever else I need. That's where I'm buying it. So my point here is, if you're carrying all those things, and I'm not saying don't, but if you're not looking at profit analysis reports, movement reports, items that don't sell, that are not selling reports to make your business decisions, you're really missing out. And point of sale systems have those tools, and you need to be doing that. So that's how you can decide whether you need to make changes in your product mix. Now, today's discussion really is for any size pharmacy. If you have just 100 SKUs, well, you should be selling 100 SKUs that turn. And if you're not looking at your reports, you don't know what's not selling and what's not turning. So Thoughts on that?
If you look at your reports and think a little bit about them and utilize them, like you're saying, you might surprise your own self about how much will move. And I know we're not dwelling on CBD, but in the CBD world, there's not another 21 inches in anybody's pharmacy that can turn the kind of dollars, both sales dollars and most importantly, profit dollars that CBD can. And you translate that over to your supplements. Obviously, it's a bigger space than 21 inches, but supplements can generate a ton of profit. And you're building, the thing I love about it is you're building credibility. You don't build a lot of credibility selling a tube of toothpaste, but you got to have it. But you can build credibility and loyalty from supplements, CBD, things along those lines.
Yeah, and that, I think that's the thing. You need to look at the reports and see, get the stuff that doesn't sell out of your business. I've got a quick example. This actually happened in my parents' store years ago. But they had in their POS system, they were looking at their department reports on a monthly basis, and they noticed that one of the departments, the health and beauty aids department, had really seen a massive decrease in sales. And they drilled down with reporting and looked at all the way down for that particular department at the fine line level. And in the fine line, one of the fine lines was hair color. And they had 16 feet. So it was a large pharmacy that had 16 feet of hair color. And that hair color fine line was decimated. Well, it turns out Walmart, that had opened just a couple months earlier, that's what was called a category killer line for Walmart. They were selling that hair color at below my dad's cost. And so my parents went in to Walmart, looked around, saw they carried the Goody hair care line, but their prices were ridiculously high on the Goody products line. They went back to the pharmacy. They shrunk that hair color section from 16 feet to 4, expanded into other hair product lines that Walmart either didn't carry as much of or didn't carry at a higher price. And they really, after about 6 months, brought that department back up to pretty much par where it was before. So they're making money on it again. You couldn't do that without looking at reports. And it amazes me how many times I go into a pharmacy and talk to a pharmacy and they don't run those reports. So I just have to reiterate, it's an imperative in any business decision that you're making.
Yeah, and I think if you're a good manager too, Brad, that's a job you can probably shift off to someone that can do, maybe can do a better job of it than you can and feed you back the information you need to make those management decisions.
Absolutely. I think that was the other thing I was going to say about that is a lot of pharmacies are relying on their primary drug wholesaler to come in and help them set their shelves and say this is what you need to be carrying, but those people are being paid by the drug wholesaler to put that product on the shelf.
Right.
You have to look at your POS reports to see that, what? I don't need 16 feet of hair color, regardless of what my drug wholesaler says. I don't need all these tubes of toothpaste or all of this line of Tylenol and so forth. Okay, so we've got to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes. So any final thoughts? What's the most important thing that they could be doing right now?
I think you've got well, number one, you've got a unique time in history. You got patients coming in that may never come back in your store. So here's your chance to captivate that patient and make the ask. Give them the information, start the conversation, use a immunization form add-on to get the conversation going, or just ask the patient, period. I told you just the other day, Brad, just real quickly, of one of our pharmacies has pet CBD, challenged his staff to sell 4 a week, bought a gas card for the one that sells the most in a week, and his cashiers ask everybody that comes in about their pets, and everybody loves to talk about their pets. He made $20,000 last year just on pet CBD. I mean, it kind of goes back to the hair color issue, but make that ask, have a brochure for that patient to take home with them. So if they aren't interested, you send something home with them and ask them to give it to a friend or relative if they're not interested. But plant that seed and get them thinking about it. And the other thing I tell people is people are boxed in with COVID right now. They got more time to read than they've ever had. So send something home that they can hold in their hand. And I know Stephanie's got a good follow up because she's a great marketer and has been for years.
Well, no, I mean, to your point, Gary, I think just adding that ask, like you were saying, if you have people coming in for COVID vaccines, they've never been in your store before, know all about them, gather more information, ask them, you get your prescriptions from me, right? And I did this all the time. And patients were like, no, I get them down the road. And I'm like, well, let's get them transferred over. We'll do it free of charge. They don't know that everyone transfers free of charge. But now let's get them over. They know I transfer free of charge today. So I got more sales that way by just asking that question and just wrapping back up to your point. So I think just the ask is important. Then once you gather more information, put that in your point of sale system. I mean, it's a huge tool. So we've got to utilize, run the reports, knowing what you're doing. And you can't manage anything unless you know the numbers. So know your numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to know your community,
Yeah.
and ask
Demographic.
questions. That I think that really ultimately, because again, back to there's no one size fits all here, right? We have some of the pharmacies listening today are, full traditional independent pharmacies that sell everything from, clothing to, sporting equipment and so forth. To the small apothecary that has just 100 or 200 SKUs. But ultimately, looking at having a plan, looking at reporting from your pharmacy management system, looking at reporting from your POS system, making business decisions based on data. That's really ultimately what it comes down to, and that's going to help you improve your front end profitability. So I want to thank both of you very much for your time today. I think this was a great discussion. I hope that our viewers agree. Would love to have both of you back at some point in the future. But thank you again. And we're going to put up a splash screen with your contact information so that if anybody has questions, wishes to contact you to work with you, they'll be able to do that. And then when that will be up for about 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then we'll be back to Brandon and I to do the Climate Center Award. Thanks again, and we'll talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.